hope you understand it. So let's see how that will happen. Okay, let's extend that. Let's see if we can get our 1 to 30 from this trade. Okay, you are welcome. Now let's look at this lecture on top-down analysis. It's a kind of strategy that we can call the golden strategy. And when we measure top-down analysis, is when we look at the chart starting from the higher time frame, then to the corresponding lower time frame. In this scenario right now, we can be looking at the monthly chart. When you want to look at any pair or any type of trading, you have to look from the monthly chart. That's the higher time frame. Then you go from the monthly to the weekly to the daily, then the hourly time frame, like 4 hour, 1 hour. If you want to go to the minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, you can also do that. So that is what that is what the top-down analysis is all about. Okay, it's a golden strategy. How is it golden? How is it a golden strategy? I will explain to us. Now you can see in this drawing over here, in this skeletal drawing of how price move, on the market. When you look at the charts on the left over here, you can see this is a representation of higher time frame, zone from zone. This is our first strategy. I call it strategy 1 to 1. The first strategy, you can check that on the channel, that I did was about zone from zone. What that means is this: we have to identify a previous high point. That's if this is a buying market. The example I'm giving over here is for bullish trend, okay, and as such, price is moving upward, making previous high, previous low, another high point, then make another low, and this previous low, if it give us a valid demand zone, then that's demand zone 1. Demand zone 1 now push the price upward, take out the previous high point, then giving us another zone 2, demand zone 2. That's if all this now happened on the higher time frame, we have a verified zone 1, verified zone 2. We can call this zone 1 from zone 2. And now if this is the higher time frame, then we'll now go to the lower time frame. Let's say this is the weekly, and then this is the daily by the right hand side. Now on the daily, if we now have this type of structure whereby when price come back into this zone 2, which is from a higher time frame of zone from zone 1 and 2, give us a valid zone 2, and as such, in the lower time frame, if you now see another zone from zone, this is zone 1, price tap into it, take out the previous high point, and then give us a valid zone 2, we can now expect to take this market, to enter this market. We can expect to enter this market on zone 2, just like we have learned from the strategy 1 video on this channel. If you have not watched that, please go and watch it over and over again to understand what I'm saying. Now this is what we can now call this what zone from zone, strategy 1 to 1, top down analysis, because we are looking from the higher time frame, then we're looking from also from the lower time frame. We are going to be entering the trade on the lower time frame, and not on zone 2, not on zone 1, but usually from zone 2. We can also enter from zone 1, but for the purpose of this lecture, let's look at strategy 1 to 1, zone from zone, and then that's on a higher time frame, and then zone from zone from the lower time frame. Now, still looking at that, we can now look at strategy 1 to 2. What I mean by strategy 1 to 2 is this. Let's say this is our higher time frame. From our higher time frame, we want to identify strategy 1, and strategy 1 is what is called zone from zone, right? meaning that this is zone 1. The first zone is valid, second zone is valid on the higher time frame. By the time you switch to the lower time frame on the right hand side, or if we see that price has given us, that's on the lower time frame now, price has given us a failed zone, okay, failed zone, and then make a change in direction, and then when I have a valid zone from that failed zone, we can expect price to come into that new zone now, and we'll continue to buy this market, which is a very effective, very effective strategy we can apply to our trading to be confident that the trade has higher probability of going to our direction. Now let's look at the other one. I call it strategy 2 to 2. And what do I mean by strategy 2 to 2? Like I always say, we always have to look from the higher time frame to the lower time frame. Now from the higher time frame, if we have strategy 2 is what we call phase zone. This is the first leg of the phase zone. Then after price has gone up, take out the previous high point, giving us a demand zone from the higher time frame. By the time we now switch to the lower time frame, we can see that price tap into the higher time frame phase zone that is not valid. Then if price also give us a phase zone from the lower time frame, we just have to wait. After price has taken out the previous high point, then this particular zone, we can now use it as our demand zone to enter this trade and buy the market easily. All this, by the time you see there, it will give you more confidence to take a trade, believing that the possibility of it going to your direction that you want it to go to is very high. Now this is strategy 2 to 2. We can also use strategy 2 to 1. What I mean by that is, when you use strategy 2, we all know it's a phase zone from the videos I've made on this channel. Phase zone, and when a phase zone happens, the new zone that is very valid from the higher time frame, by the time we switch to the lower time frame, if we now see that it's now strategy, the higher time frame is strategy 1, strategy 2, right, which is a phase zone like we have here. But by the time we switch to the lower time frame, we may see a strategy 1 trade there. And strategy 1 is what? Zone from zone. I hope you understand. Meaning that when price tap into the phase zone of the higher time frame, now on the lower time frame, if we see an example like this, whereby price give us zone 1, put the trade upward, then zone 1 has given us a valid zone 2, we can enter the trade on zone 2, price to come down to the zone 2 and continue to buy. So let's quickly look at an example on the real chart. Okay, so let's look at example on the real chart. By the time you look at this chart, what can you notice? You can notice a previous high point. Okay, that's a high point there, a previous high, a previous low. Now when you identify that, we can also notice a new previous high point, and then another low point, and then lastly we can identify a new high point, but we can't identify another low point yet because the previous high point has not been taken out. Okay, this is a previous month high. Now what am I trying to identify here is demand zone. This on the monthly time frame. We can see right from the left over here we have a month demand zone. So let me put it there. Then the first demand zone push the price upward. You can see when you push it upward, give us another zone 2, another demand zone 2. That's on the monthly right now. Now on the monthly, from this particular trade, you can see that this is zone 1 on the monthly time frame, has now produced zone 2. Okay, now one price will come into this zone 2 and then continue to buy. So when price get to the zone 2, what do we expect? we expect price to be buying. Okay, when can we tag along? It's now when it is then it is only when we go to the corresponding lower time frame. I hope you understand what I'm saying. So we'll move from the monthly right now. Let's go to the weekly. And in the weekly, what are we looking for? We are looking for either strategy 1 or strategy 2. Strategy 1, as we know it, is what? Zone from zone. And then strategy 2 is what? Fade zone. So any of those ones that we can see from the weekly or the daily, we can enter the trade accordingly. Okay, now let's see what will happen. So usually what I usually do is this. I barely take trade on the weekly. If I see any trade on the monthly, on the weekly, I can enter a trade on the daily. So let's go to the daily. Now on the daily, we are looking for what? Our zone from zone or fade zone. So let's see what that may give us. So all this now that price is doing, it has not taken out the previous low and it has not taken out the previous high. Until it does that, we are still watching. Okay, let us see. Okay, we can now see what has happened over here. This was the previous high point and this was the previous low point. So now we can see right from the left, price has taken out the previous high point. When price has taken out the previous high point, meaning that there's a change in direction and we cannot be looking for our buying opportunity. It is now that we can be looking for our zone from zone or phase zone, either our strategy 1 or strategy 2. Now we can identify a very valid demand zone over there. Let's see if that demand zone can hold up. Okay, we'll see. I hope you can see what I'm seeing here. This is a previous high on the daily right now, a previous low, and then we have a previous high. Now we also have a new low. So when we have this, already price has taken out the previous high point. You see what I'm saying? This is previous high point, price has taken it out, making this low valid. Then this low is valid because price has taken out this previous high point also. So what are we waiting for now? We want price to come into this zone 2 and then continue to buy. So if we want to trade this market, we can now place our buying order on this particular zone 2. And this particular one is what we call zone from zone, right? Because so like I usually do, I can take my trade just risking 1 to 3. So this is zone 1, zone 2. Okay, so price has moved from zone 1 now, it's now in zone 2. What we want price to do is to come back to the zone 2 and give us our risking of 1 to 3. I hope you understand it. So let's see how that will happen. Okay, let's extend that. Let's see if we can get our 1 to 3 from this trade. Okay, you can now see it was a very beautiful trade, having a risk reward of 1 to 3. And what gave us the confidence to enter this trade additionally is because we are using top-down analysis. This particular box you can see over here is from the monthly demand zone that was coming from strategy 1. Strategy 1 is zone from zone, right? Now when price tap into the monthly zone, we can go to the weekly or we can also go to the daily. So I prefer going to the daily because if I see a zone from zone on the daily, I can enter the market. But if I see it on the weekly, I may be contemplating. Okay, I will also have to go to the daily again to enter the trade. So I just move from the monthly straight to the daily And when I did that, it was when I then identified that yes, price has given us is our number one strategy even now on the daily. So this particular trade that gave us strategy 1 to 1, and what that is because price gave us zone from zone, okay, from the monthly, on the monthly time frame. They will now have zone from zone from the daily time frame. So putting these two together, it was then we'll now have this particular beautiful trade risking 1 to 3. I hope you understand this. For this video not to be too long, we are going to take just only one example, and every other example you can see it on the chart. All you have to do is to spend more time and practice and trade and become more profitable. That's all for this lecture. Thank you.